Good day, compensation management students. We're now in week 6 and we're going to go through the exciting topic of pay for performance. Many of you would know that this is what your first assignment is on. So after today, you'll have all the content, quite a lot of content. I'm killing you with content this week to be able to adequately do this assignment. All right, so what's the point of pay for performance? Well, really, the reality is that base pay alone, your base salary, may not actually motivate you to perform at your optimum. And we all know that employees who are not motivated are really unlikely to be performing at the standards that we would like them to perform at. So we've recognized this and we're trying to offer some sort of incentive to workers to basically make them perform at the level required or to demonstrate the behaviors that would lead to the performance required. So incentive plans are also called variable pay programs. And what we mean by this is that your pay can vary. So variable pay is when we tie pay to some measure of performance. It may be as an individual you've done well, and then therefore your pay may be varied in that you get additional. It may be as a group, or it may be looking at the overall organization. So we're going to look at each of those individually. So an incentive reward is based entirely upon a pay for performance in philosophy, in that I'm incentivizing you or I'm giving you an incentive. I'm giving you more if you perform at a certain level. So it's all about performance. So what happens is that an incentive pay program will establish some sort of performance standard or performance threshold, which would be the minimum level of performance required of the employee. And for you to receive this incentive payment, whatever it may be, you need to perform at that level stated. So at that, you need to have attained that performance level before you can be rewarded in any way. So we all know for sure by now that we need to be linking everything with compensation to what we're trying to achieve. So the same, in fact, even more so if possible here. But incentive plans must be linked to the strategic direction of the organization. They must be directly linked to the objectives we're trying to achieve. So let's say that some of our goals may be to lower labor costs, to improve customer satisfaction, to expand product lines, to have more quality. Basically, if these are some of the objectives of the organization, then these are going to be some of what we hope compensation will help to achieve. And definitely when we're designing incentive plans, these are the things we should be looking at. So yes, can we find a way to give an incentive or some sort of variable pay or pay for performance to an employee who demonstrates exceptional levels of customer service delivery. So we're making sure that what we reward and recognize is in fact helping us achieve our goals. So what are the advantages of doing an incentive pay program? Well, they're pretty obvious, I think. Let's just go through them. First of all, it helps focus employee efforts on specific performance targets. People, it's been proven that when there are goals in place, that people are going to work harder towards achieving a goal that they're aware of, and they see how they have an input into achieving that goal. Just generally having a performance target helps people focus. So really, in a nutshell, I could say, yeah, I want to lose weight. That don't mean nothing. If I say I want to lose 20 pounds in 6 months, it's much more, attainable, something I can really work towards. So that's in keeping with goal setting theory, and for those of you who may recall, management by objectives, okay? The other advantage is that incentive payments are what we call variable costs, so they are linked to the achievement of results. So base salaries are fixed costs. You have to pay people these fixed salaries whether or not they're performing or not. So an advantage of an incentive payment is, if you pay them out, it's because you're achieving results. Incentives may foster teamwork and unit cohesiveness, but only, let's be clear on this, only when the payments are based on team results. So I'm just going to think of a really silly example. Let's say I'm strictly basing it on individual results. There may be a little bit of competition. I may try and thief your client because that can make me look better, etc. But when we do have a team incentive, cohesiveness and teamwork is greatly enhanced. I think we've kind of said this. Incentive compensation is directly related to operating performance. If performance objectives are met, incentives are paid. But if they're not achieved, then nobody gets any incentive. So I'm not rewarding people or the organization or a group if there's no performance level achieved or if the performance is not what it should be. Incentives are a way to distribute success among those who are actually responsible for producing the success. So that's a real big one there. We're acknowledging the work that you've done, the contributions that you've made, and you're sharing in the successes. Incentives are also a means to reward or attract top performance when maybe you don't have that much money for base salary. So my base salaries may not be that high, but I have an excellent incentive program that makes the difference when it comes to attracting new people or keeping those that I have. Excuse me. So you got to spend some time designing these pay for performance plans. You can't just make this up in 2 minutes. This takes a lot of thought, because remember, we have to be careful that what we are recognizing and rewarding is what we want to be repeated. We have to be clear that what we're recognizing and rewarding or incentivizing is actually what we want to achieve. It's in keeping with our mission or our strategic goals. So what do we need to have a successful incentive plan? Well, the first one is that employees themselves should have a desire for the plan. Managers just can't come and say, hey, look, the plan, but we need to actually successfully convince or influence employees to see the benefits of the plan. And one of the ways that we do this, and we all know this, is involvement. We need to involve employees in the development and the administration of the plan. Obviously, if you're involved from the beginning, or you have an input into how this thing could work, or someone just asks you your opinion, then that will generally increase your willingness to accept. But people got to see the benefits. People, or rather employees, must be able to see a clear connection between the incentive payments that they receive and their job performance. So if it's not crystal clear to an employee that when I perform really well, I'm going to be incentivized, then we run this risk of employees not having to perform very well and get incentivized. And be very careful about what we're reinforcing when we do that. So our behavioral standards or our SMART goals or whatever it is we're incentivizing on has to be very, very objective. It has to be SMART. It cannot be subjective, because then people just don't know what they're really being, incentivized on. There must be a commitment by employees to actually achieve the performance standards. So not just that they expect the performance standards to be realistic, but employees need to be committed to achieving them. And that's going to be, really when we have a culture of trust and respect, that this is not no setup. This is not that you're just trying to make me work faster or harder. I genuinely believe that I can achieve these with the tools that you're giving me, and I'm going to work that little bit extra harder to make it happen. Management should never allow incentive payments to be seen as an entitlement. Whew, that's a big one in today's society. These payments are not an entitlement. They're actually a reward. Okay, so even when we're paying these things, we should actually pay them separately so that people see that there's a difference here. This is not just what you're contractually bound to get, but this is a reward for additional work. That's a big deal. Incentives are linked to clearly communicated, desired, and valued behaviors. So you can't just tell people, yeah, you need to make this amount of sales, but you also need to be clearly explaining to them what are the behaviors that are required to achieve those sales, so that people can see that it's possible to do. So let's say I want you to increase sales. Well, one of the things you might have to do is to cold call or call 5 new customers every day. That's a behavior rather than just go make the sales. Productivity or the quality standards, whatever the standards that you're hoping people will achieve, they need to be challenging but achievable. This idea of a little stretch goal. It can't be that you just come and do your normal amount of work and achieve them, because then you're not incentivized to work that bit harder. But that they're challenging. They can't just be easy to achieve. And another big one is the formula that we use to calculate how much people are going to get should be really easy to understand. So our payout formula, people shouldn't be tying up their heads to work out how much money they should be getting or what they could be entitled to. It should be very straightforward. So as I alluded to there are different types of incentive plans, and this is really by whether or not we are rewarding the individual, the group, or a team or a department, and the organization. So let's start with the individual. So one of the oldest types of incentive plans is piecework, as in how much piece you how much pieces you produced or completed. So a straight piecework would just be that the employee receives a certain rate for each unit produced. So if you produce I don't know, 10 t-shirts, you get $100. If you produce 15, you get $150, etc. $15 a piece or $10 a piece or whatever it worked out to. Or the differential piece rate is where if we exceed the amount of output, you receive a higher rate. So let's say you are required to produce 10 t-shirts. Only when you exceed that do you actually qualify for the incentive. So just different ways of working it out. So we do tend to still see this happening in places that are like more manufacturing or by piece. You're paid by the piece, that incentives tend to also be by the piece. One thing we have to be careful of course, is that quality does not suffer because we're just trying to get quantity. So they have to go hand in hand. Okay, so another way that we can look at it is how long do things take? So let's say, what do I have here? Right, a standard time for a mechanic to install an engine is 5 hours. But if he takes 4 hours, he'll still be paid at 5 times the hourly rate. So we're looking at people, rewarding people for speeding up a little bit of their work. The speeding up of their work is what is being rewarded. Which, of course, if that means maybe, we could look at it another way that, if you finish in time, you can go home early, but you're still getting your full pay. All those kind of ways are ways that we can incentivize people. But again, I want to reiterate the importance of quality and not just speeding up work. So quality must be checked in any kind of incentive plan such as these. We don't often think of it as an incentive payment, but it is a bonus. So a bonus is an incentive payment that is given to an employee beyond your normal base pay. So it's additional to. It's frequently given at the end of a year. It's not part of your base pay at all. And again, the criteria for your performance should be really clear. It should be very clear to everyone that the higher the level of your performance, the greater your bonus should be. It can't be that people who are, one person is performing really well and the other person is not, that they receive the same bonus. You got to make this thing really objective. Another interesting type of bonus is a spot bonus. This is not actually usually related to a performance measure, but somebody does something really well, so they get a bonus on the spot. Now, this might be a good way of, rewarding those one-off great behaviors, but we should still try and ensure that they're in keeping with, at least, if not an objective, at least the vibe we're trying to set or the culture. So let's say somebody goes out of their way to, help change a customer's tire. Now, obviously, that's not part of their job unless they're a mechanic. But let's say the customer broke down in a car park. They go out of their way to make sure the customer's okay. Maybe we want to recognize those great behaviors, but as you can see, they're not really in keeping with a strategic goal. Merit pay is a big one.